The race that ruined careers. After the success of the funny race review I did a month ago about the Mugello 2020 race, I decided to do another one about a race from 2018. A race with great racing, crashes, and an unforgettable radio. Let me take you back through this race step by step while touching on the implications of many of the events. Some things were never the same after this race. Welcome to the funny race review of the 2008 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. 2018. That year was another dominant year for the Mercedes team. Well, not for Bottas, as he didn't win a single race that season. But people still say he was a strong teammate. I think he was ass. Lewis Hamilton secured his 5th title that season and broke a bunch of records. You know, the usual stuff then. All that unimportant Wikipedia nonsense. Well, he's not breaking records anymore. Lol. Max Verstappen had a famously bad start that season, with incidents in nearly every round before Baku. For the people who started watching F1 after 2018, it's not going better for him this race, I'm afraid. His teammate was the experienced Daniel Ricciardo, who claimed his car was cursed that season.
Exactly.
He did suffer 8 retirements throughout that year, and it turned out to be his last season he drove for Red Bull. Also due to what happened this race. Ferrari had Vettel and Raikkonen in their cars, with the German having somewhat of a title fight, but Mercedes turned out to be too strong. It was also the time when the FIA had all kinds of different tyres. They had the pink Hypersoft, the purple Ultrasoft, the red Supersoft, the yellow Soft, the white Medium, the blue Hard and the orange Super Hard. Super Hard is orange because orange goes super hard, obviously. The race. The starting grid was as follows. The front row was for Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton, who had a bit of an exchange a year earlier in Baku. The second row was Bottas and Ricciardo, followed by Verstappen and Raikkonen. Ocon and Perez for Force India in P7 and P8, and Sainz driving for Renault and Stroll driving for Williams filled the top 10. So at the initial start, not much happened on that narrow street circuit in Baku. We did see something flying through the air, but before we could find out what it was, Ocon was yeeted into the wall by Kimi Raikkonen. On the replay it showed that Esteban closed the door on him and the Iceman had nowhere to go. Esti Besti must have thought it was his teammate or something. Before Mazepin we had another Russian F1 driver. Sergei Sirotkin drove for Williams. He had a puncture, the highlight of his career. Same as Fernando Alonso, who drove in the papaya of McLaren that season with a GP2 engine. While limping back into the garage to get his car fixed, he had one of those iconic radios that he's famous for.
What a stupid guy. He closed me the door. You know, we were side by side, I don't understand.
At Sauber we had the sweet Ericsson and a young Charles Leclerc. Ericsson was used to the team sabotaging his teammates, but that didn't happen when the Ferrari prodigy was there. He was ditched to IndyCar after this season. They had a little touch as well on that first lap, so the safety car came onto the track and a little while later they were ready to go again. Vettel surprised everyone when he started the race again, and it left the Mercedes duo behind, with the 2 Red Bulls behind them. A cheeky little move from the young Dutchman saw him overtake Danny Ric on the inside. This was the start of a war between the 2 drivers who love each other dearly outside of the car. But not this race. They were racing each other like it was a title battle. Carlos Sainz got involved too after that, fighting to get past Verstappen, but Max is impossible to pass a lot of the time. He kept throwing it on the inside and stayed ahead for a while. On lap 9, Sainz managed to slip past Max with DRS, and he was on softer tires too. The same happened with Hulkenberg on Ricciardo. Hulkenberg then passed Verstappen too. That looked solid. He might even work his way up to a podium.
Lol.
Nah. Lap 11 he hits the wall and has a puncture. Then Verstappen and Ricciardo are starting that huge scrap again. Ricciardo tries to overtake Max time and again for the youngster to keep defending like mad. Every time you think he's got him, Verstappen had an answer, even with a little kiss here and there. It was very tense, but Red Bull left him to it. For a while not much happened except Liberty Media showing they wanted to branch out. We see Lewis Hamilton, the GOAT for some people, flat spot his tyres for no obvious reason. Lap 27. The Red Bulls are at it again. And again it's Verstappen with some cunning risky defending who stays ahead. Paul Satan Di Resta spent an awful lot of time pleading for Horner to do team orders. But I've also heard the commentary being disgusted by team orders. I made a video about team orders, you can watch it here as long as you promise to come back to finish this one. In lap 35 the Honey Badger finally, with all the risk he could take, made a move on Verstappen that stuck. He was free of that pesky kid for good. Or was he? As the leading driver, Ricciardo was pitted first. This is a normal procedure in Formula 1. Verstappen was pitted a lap later, and there's something that Max Verstappen is really good at, and that's driving a super fast in lap and a super fast out lap on cold tires. And even with Max's pit stop being 2/10 slower than Ricciardo's, he came out in front and the fun could start all over again. So, Verstappen in front as they head onto the big long straight. Ricciardo was gaining and gaining, and Verstappen was trying to break the toe before committing to braking for the upcoming turn. Ricciardo was thrown off a little by Verstappen moving and couldn't decide whether to take the inside or the outside, stepped on the brake too late and piled into the back of car number 33. They were both out of the race, and this crash had quite an effect on the Australians' future. What happened in the aftermath of those two demolishing their cars was that they were made to apologize to the people in the factory, and they were scolded by Dr. Helmut Marko. Now Max said that he wasn't all that impressed by Marko as he was used to getting scolded by his dad, but Ricciardo was very upset by these events. Maybe he blamed the team for his slow outlap. Danny Rick said later that this crash caused him to join Renault a year later, and we all know how it went downhill for him after that. He's back in the Red Bull team fold now, so I suppose everything is done and dusted, but it shows how things can snowball into something huge. Anyway, a safety car is summoned and Bottas pits in the lead. All the cars behind Bernd Meinlander are warming their tires nicely before they can start racing again. And then we notice someone's in the wall, during a safety car. Not even racing. Who could it be? It was of course that French f***, Romain Grosjean. Then another famous radio popped up. We can clearly hear someone saying, "I think Ericsson hit us."
I think Ericsson hit us.
That was hilarious, as Ericsson was nowhere near it. Grosjean says it wasn't him who said it, and I believe him. He also threw his gloves, so we know it's serious. 4 laps left. Bottas is leading the pack behind the safety car, and when they were released, he went early and had a nice lead. On that long straight, they all had nice slipstreams before that famous turn. Vettel tried to pass Bottas on the inside but overcooked it and locked up, almost crashing. Hamilton gained an easy position there. He gained the lead even easier when his wingman had a sudden puncture, due to a bit of debris on the track. I don't know any other driver with that many lucky wins, to be honest. Whether it was Ocon messing with the leader of the race in Brazil, the stewards giving Vettel an unnecessary penalty in Canada, or this victory here. But they all count. He doesn't have more than 100 for nothing. Checo Perez passes Vettel, who had his tires ruined, and that gave him a podium in his Racing Point. So #blessed won, followed by Raikkonen and Perez in P3. That concludes a very eventful Baku 2018 race. If you like this content, here's 3 seconds to leave a like and subscribe. Take care now. Doei doei.